Lara is an anima mage that relies heavily on all her various spirit friends that she summons throughout everything she does. While this cute goat girl may not have the best mobility, she puts in some pretty decent work in parties as a support, and her summons are strong for both grinding and bossing. She's also the only mage class that requires using a wand instead of opting for a staff like nearly every other mage class. Her main system surrounding Dragon Veins is probably her biggest learning curve, but even then it's really not all that bad. So let's break down understanding her better, starting with all her skills. Beginner skills are very simple, so I'll make this quick. Shapeshift toggles your goat horns on or off, 10-second cooldown. Spirit Affinity increases minion duration by 10%. And your Link skill, Nature's Friend, passively increases your damage by 5%, and when you defeat 20 mobs, it gives you a buff that does extra damage against normal monsters for 30 seconds. 11% normal monster damage at its max Link level of 2, which you unlock at level 120. 30-second cooldown. First Job gives the old standard of a basic movement passive, and a flash jump and an up jump, which are separate skills entirely, surprisingly enough. Also, sadly, you can only use Lara's up jump while on the ground. Peerless Mountain is a toggle that just reduces all the damage you take by 70%. It's pretty much Lara's equivalent to Magic Guard. Essence Sprinkle is your main attacking skill for everything you do. Mobbing, bossing, you name it. You're stuck with it for life, so make buddy-buddy with it as immediately as you can. It gets upgrades at almost every single job rank, even right here at first. Mountain Kid summons these little mountain spirits when you attack with Essence Sprinkle, at a 40% chance with every Essence Sprinkle attack. They aren't proper summons, but more so just an extra attack that occasionally comes out. No cooldown. Second Job gives 2 more passives for Mastery and a slight boost to Int, Lara's main stat, a typical attack speed boosting buff, and this incredibly important toggle. Dragon Vein Reading summons these little multicolored areas around most maps you're in, when toggled on of course. There's some exceptions like them not spawning in towns or event maps etc, but anyways, on their own they don't do anything, and they despawn when you move away from them. Up to 10 can be nearby you in your map at any given time, and you get a few ways to use them as you progress throughout your job ranks. Every skill that consumes them also gives you 100% knockback resistance as you're casting their animation. Right now, all you currently have to use them is Dragon Vein Eruption. Walk up to a Dragon Vein, click it, and it summons a spirit corresponding to that color. Blue veins spawn Heaving River, a river spirit that splashes on both sides of it in its surrounding area. Green veins spawn Whirlwind, which does giant gusts of wind in its area and has a pretty tall vertical hitbox. Look at that, that's high. And orange veins spawn Sunrise Well, which covers its surrounding ground in lava, and also periodically summons these little sunlight spirits that chase down nearby enemies, leaving a lingering damage over time effect on those it doesn't immediately defeat. Also, it targets bosses with the highest health, and subsequent hits on the same enemy deal 10% less damage. Each spirit lasts for 16 seconds, and you can have one of every color out at the same time, just littering whatever map you're fighting monsters in. Both Eruption and its resulting spirits have no cooldown either, meaning you can just have all these out indefinitely, just so long as you keep spawning them from the correct colors. Lastly, all that's left here at second is Mountain Seeds. This skill summons mountain spirits when you either click it manually, or when you right-click the skill to put it into auto mode, and use Eruption on any vein. The spirits themselves run around and deal a little bit of damage to nearby enemies. If there's an active Eruption vein nearby, they'll even push enemies towards those veins. If you hold down and click the skill, you summon all your stored spirits at once, up to its maximum map limit of 4. It builds up 1 mountain seed every 7 seconds, up to a max of 4 total seeds, as I just mentioned, and each spirit lasts for 10 seconds when summoned. I'd recommend keeping this one on auto mode. Third Job just keeps building upon what you already know and introduces a couple new useful things. First, these passives for extra various stats and increased previous job skill damage. And this passive that recovers health and mana and increases your final damage for 20 seconds every time you consume a vein in any capacity. Dragon Vein Trace is a weird little short teleporting skill that snaps you towards a nearby vein in your map up to a certain distance. You can alter the direction slightly with your arrow keys, and it also damages enemies at its location when you do teleport. 1 charge built up every 6 seconds, up to 4 total charges, 1 second cooldown in between teleports. Wake Up Call consumes the vein closest to you and summons a bunch of wisp-looking things. It claims it awakens multiple dormant dragon veins, but in reality it only awakens the one closest to you. Anyways, these wispy looking things chase nearby enemies down and deal damage to them. Subsequent hits on the same enemy does 40% less damage, 9-second cooldown. Ending off third job skills, you get a new method of summoning veins called Manifestation. Each one is more so utility focused rather than dealing damage directly. They all do give passive damage to their respective colors' eruption counterparts though, and they all also have a 1-minute cooldown. Where the river course is lets you make a path between 2 blue veins in any given grinding map, exclusively not boss maps, and pressing up on either side lets you glide within it. You only need 1 blue vein to use it, and then you can set the endpoint wherever you feel like, as long as it's far enough away. It lets you flow both ways, and you can even attack while riding it. Wind Swing summons a gust of wind for 30 seconds that gives you and all party members within it not only a buff that increases attack speed and slightly your movement stats, but it also lets you float around within it by jumping and pressing up. You can float up to 4.5 seconds. If you wanted no fun allowed for your party, or your party just doesn't want to float around, you can right-click to disable the floating functionality of this skill. The buff it gives only lasts for 20 seconds for party members, but for Lara specifically, it lasts 2 whole minutes. The same applies to the buff from this next and final manifestation actually. Sunlight-filled ground similarly makes a big ol' area for you and party members, and it increases damage dealt to enemies, as well as recovers health every couple seconds. The buffs from Sun and Wind's manifestations you'll usually want to keep on always. Fourth job has the typical Maple Warrior and Heroes well, the typical stat and mastery passives, and a few previous job increasing passives. Nature Master makes your eruption skills hit harder and last longer, and In-Depth Geomancy passively increases various things for Lara. Extra damage on your non-eruption summon type skills, Mountain Kid's attack chance goes up to 70%, and Mountain Seed summon duration goes up to 20 seconds. Mountain Embrace is a defensive skill that encases you in a giant mountain spirit bubble thing for as long as you hold it, reducing all damage taken by about half, up to 8 seconds. The cooldown is reduced for every extra second remaining from the time you let go of the skill, going from about a 32-second cooldown up to a 60-second cooldown when held its entire length. Dragon Vein Conversion lets you go up to any vein you so please, and change its color to whichever color you wanted right there. 6-second cooldown. Oh, would you look at that? It's vein skill time. Dragon Vein Absorption lets you consume a vein right into your wand, and each color gives you a different buff that passively gives some new attacks alongside when you attack with Essence Sprinkle. Absorbing a blue vein gives River Puddle Douse, which drops a little river spirit on top of enemies. Green veins give Fierce Wind, summoning a little tornado in an area. And orange veins give Sunlight Grain, which summons a sun spirit that spits out sunlight orbs that fly out at enemies. Same subsequent enemies hit reduces damage nonsense as its orange eruption counterpart. Each buff lasts for 95 seconds, you can have all 3 colors absorbed at a time, and there's a 2.5 second cooldown in between the individual spirits' attacks. The one caveat to this skill though, is you can't have both eruption and absorption going at the same time. You need to make an executive decision if you wanted summons out, or if you wanted to attack with spamming Essence Sprinkle. Just keep that in mind. Are hyper skills interesting? Well, I mean, I don't see any new vein skills here really. Aside from this first one, Unconstrained Dragon Vein, which just makes a blank vein at any location you so desire, that you can then make into any color vein, either through Dragon Vein Eruption, Absorption, or even Manifestation. Not Conversion, weirdly enough. Up to 3 can be on a map at a time, and it builds up 1 charge every 10 seconds. I don't think these veins ever go away either, so that's kinda neat. 1.5 second cooldown in between placements. Vine Coil is Lara's Bind, just simply dealing some damage to everything within the area in which it's cast, and binding enemies for the usual 10 seconds, 3-minute cooldown. And Arbor Away is a party buff / summon that spawns a giant tree in an area, reducing the defense of enemies within its area by 15%. It also gives boss damage, crit damage, and clears your abnormal status every 2 seconds. 30-second duration, 3-minute cooldown. Hyper passives, you have a lot of choices, starting with Eruption / Absorption. These are all good, but you'll absolutely want Reinforce and Boss Rush. Building around veins is part of Lara's identity, so extra damage on them is always good. Guard Break is also good, but an optional decision if you happen to need more IED. Moving on, the rest of Lara's hyper passes are all scattered and spread out amongst various skills. Like, Essence Sprinkle weirdly enough only has one hyper passive upgrade for extra boss damage. It's good for bossing, and typically you'd want to get it, but if you plan to farm for the time being, you could maybe hold off on that for now in favor of another passive. Though, there's not that much choice. Wake Up Call Cooldown Cutter isn't really necessary, as it only reduces its cooldown by 20%, and you don't really use it much at all for both grinding or bossing. It's okay if you really wanted it, but realistically you can safely skip this one. Mountain Seeds Reinforce ups the damage of your seed summons. They aren't a significant part of your damage, so this one is also fairly skippable. Dragon Vein Echo Enhance gives you movement stats and extra healing every 5 seconds when you have its passive buff active. This is a pretty decent defensive upgrade if you wanted very minimal healing. Mountain Embrace Extra Shield gives you a health shield that increases by 15% of your max health every second while you hold down the skill, and completely goes away once the skill ends in any capacity. I think there's like a 1-second buffer, but yeah. This is an amazing one for survivability in bosses, and is recommended to get. Lastly, Dragon Vein Enhance gives you super stance while casting any vein related skill that typically gives normal knockback resistance. While this one is good in bosses, it's largely just a quality of life upgrade, preventing you from flying all over the place in fights like Akechi and such. I'm going to leave all these hyper passes mostly up for interpretation, letting you decide what would work best for you. They're all pretty good all around, honestly. I'll still give my input though, because the Lara Discord both seem split on a lot of these, and also because they haven't updated their guide sections in quite a while. These are the hyper passives I use: Eruption/Absorption Reinforce and Boss Rush, Essence Sprinkle Boss Rush, Mountain Embrace Extra Shield, and Dragon Vein Enhance. Fifth job is almost entirely click it once for a big burst of damage type skills. The one exception to this being Winding Mountain Ridge, which is a summon. Click it, and 3 mountain spirits appear all around you, running back and forth, damaging all enemies they touch. They prioritize attacking bosses, last for 30 seconds, or up to 20 attacks, and slow down when they come in contact with enemies to damage them more. 1 minute cooldown. Lance Connection brings together the whole Elemental Spirits gang for an all-out attack. They do a bunch of attacks right in front of you one after the other, and end it all off with one final big explosion that does even more damage. 3 minute cooldown. Big Stretch takes whatever colored veins around you, up to 4 total, and awakens them, sending them flying to nearby enemies. It's pretty much identical in nature to Wake Up Call, except it summons up to 4 of them at a time and does way more damage. 1 minute cooldown, reducing by 12 seconds for each missing Dragon Vein it didn't summon, if you missed any. Lastly, for Lara exclusive skills, Surging Essence is just a fat chunk of damage in a large area in front of you, summoning this big old mountain spirit. That's it. It also ignores damage reflect, I guess. 20-second cooldown. Shared nodes, starting with the anima ones. Grandest Goddess's Blessing is a buff that gives you some extra % damage for 40 seconds. For Lara in specific, it also gives you final damage when you activate Dragon Vein Echo, via the passive that pops when you consume a Dragon Vein. 2 minute cooldown. Lotus Flower is an extra life. Place it down, and if you die, you're iframed and revive inside the flower. If you leave the map or it expires before you lose a life, it has a cooldown of 400 seconds, or about 6 to 7 minutes. If you do die, it has a nearly 26 minute cooldown at level 1, going down to about a 23 minute cooldown at max level. That's long. Shared Mage skills. Mana Overload is a toggle that makes nearly all your attacks stronger, at the cost of more mana per skill cast. 1 minute cooldown from the moment you toggle it on, but it stays on forever until you log off or run out of mana. Ethereal Form is a pseudo iframe, reducing damage taken from all enemy attacks for 3 seconds. Apparently in KMS recently, they're soon getting Ethereal Form changed to be a dedicated iframe, so I guess look forward to that making its way over here eventually. But anyways, back to the present. Currently it also gives Super Stance, and when you take damage, it displaces that damage to instead depleting a portion of your mana, just so long as you have enough mana. 1 minute cooldown. While Lara may have a lot of options regarding her Dragon Veins, in practice, the rest of her kit is very simple. Nonetheless, let me show you how and make her easy. I'm not sure if you picked up on this, but first things first. Eruption is insanely good for everything. Those spirits put in work and cover large areas. No matter if you're grinding or bossing, they're useful to just have hanging out with you pretty much all the time. Remember that you can't use Eruption and Absorption of the same colors at the same time. You can, however, use it in between different colors. For example, having both Sun Absorptions buff and Sun Eruptions summon? No go. Having Sun Absorption and Water and Wind Eruption and vice versa? Yeah, that's totally cool and fine if you wanted to do that. Speaking of veins, Unconstrained Dragon Vein is useful for getting veins in a very specific spot. Since they don't expire, ever, even just slapping them down on a map whenever you'd like could help out for when it does come time to use them up. It's also worth keeping in mind that you can change the colors of any veins at any given time with conversion. Really useful sometimes. Having some on-screen indicator where you can quickly see which of your Eruption or Manifest buffs you currently have up, and for however much longer, helps a lot. We can do this much easier now with buff display settings, located in the options under the UI tab, and doing a setup similar to this, with Absorb and Erupt skills occupying the same row, and then putting the on-screen window wherever you're most comfortable with looking. I personally put the manifestations right above them because they're nice buffs to keep an eye out for. That bit's less important though. While you're over here, it might be a good idea to turn down your skill transparency. Lara's skills are massive and just flood the screen. I personally can't see what's going on when my summons are out, so lowering them helps make sense of the world. For grinding, you'll just want your summons soaking up every area they can. Pretty much no map is off limits for Lara. You want to spam Sprinkle? Then absorb all the colors and have fun hopping around doing that. You want to be more relaxed? Get all your eruptions out and summoned every 16 seconds or so. Toss in an Erda Fountain and or a Will skill if you had either of those too. Tossing your 5th jobs can help when you go to loot the map on rotations, but the map is more than likely going to be covered most of the time anyways, and that's largely not really necessary. Winding Mountain Ridge helps close the gap while you're resummoning your eruption spirits though. Ending off this whole grinding section, one more thing. River farming. Get a map with a mostly condensed or flat layout, place your river manifestation paths on both sides of the map, and just keep going back and forth spamming Sprinkle with or without absorption buffs, or Eruption as you're passing on through. You could even set the start or end point near a teleporter if there's one pesky area you can't quite reach. I love this skill. It's just a fun way to train, and since you can only ever use it while grinding, you might get a kick out of it like I do. Moving on. For bossing, you'll either want to place down all your eruption summons right around the boss at all times, or use absorption and spam Essence Sprinkle. Absorption does less damage than eruption, but if the boss is one that moves around often, it could be a better pick over having your spirits sitting on the other side of the map, just wasting away until they expire. It's also slightly more relaxing having all your spirits on you for about 2 minutes, instead of resummoning them every 16 seconds or so. If you do choose Absorb over Erupt though, remember to cast your Mountain Seeds manually. They normally come out when you cast Erupt, but if you're not erupting, they're just taking a nap inside your skills window. I'd just downcast that skill to get them all out at once. Don't forget to cast Surging Essence every time it's off cooldown too, just a big chunk of damage every 20 seconds. When bossing with a party, your manifest buffs help when everyone's ready to burst. Same with Arbor Away for a nice chunk of both damage and some defense. Lara's biggest issue in bosses is her survivability because of her lack of an iframe. Is this a major worry though? Not really most of the time. Mountain Embrace still protects against most things, even more so if you get its extra shield hyper passive. But regardless, you can still die to certain one-shot attacks. Should I even still cover Link skills? Yeah, why not? Link skills are the same as every other class. For grinding, Evan, Mercedes, and Iran for extra rune duration, extra flat XP gained, and extra combo orb XP respectively. Lara's built-in Link skill is useful for more normal monster damage too. The rest of the slots can be filled in with whichever damage-dealing links you feel most comfortable having. It doesn't really matter for this, just so long as you're dealing sufficient enough damage to mobs, preferably one-shotting them every spawn cycle. A layout like this works. For bossing, any damage and boss damage increasing links, like Kana, both the demon classes, Luminous for IED if you needed more of that, Arc Solus is a good stacking damage buff, AB link for when it comes time to burst, and the rest can be filled, again, with whatever links that deal damage while bossing that you either have and or want to use. some layout looking something like this is good. Resistance Link will always be there for you, in times of trouble, in times of prosperity, but more realistically in times of when you die in a boss and revive. Yeah, 8 whole seconds of invincibility. Inner ability is pretty much the same as Hao Young's. Anima Brethren for life, am I right? For a bossing setup, first line you'll want passives +1 because of the boosts it gives to a bunch of your various passives at 4th job. Your mastery, stat boosting passives, skill boosting passives, Maple Warrior, and absorption skills. It's just really good, and it even stacks with combat orders, making most of your 4th job skills go up to 2 levels past its maximum. Second and third lines you'll want abnormal status damage to do more damage against debuffed enemies, and boss damage for more boss damage, of course. If you end up with a flat magic attack line, that's a fine enough settle too. For a grinding setup, nothing too crazy, same as everyone else. Drop, meso, and normal monster damage. If you planned to grind for more money, you can prioritize first line being meso, but otherwise, yeah, that's it. Lara's Trinodes are kind of funny. She only has 8, and you want to boost 6 of them. First, let's get the ones you don't want to boost out of the way. Vine Coil is just your class bind, and Dragon Vein Traces is a typically fairly whatever skill in terms of its damage. Now for everything else, in this order, starting with the main Trinode you'll want to get first. Essence Sprinkle, Dragon Vein Eruption, and Mountain Kid. Sprinkle is like your only direct attack you get, and synergizes alongside Mountain Kid having a chance to do an extra attack when it does come out with Sprinkle, so those two work in tandem pretty well. Eruption is your lifeblood. Although summons do huge damage and cover large portions of the map, it's just a really good skill. Next Trinode, Dragon Vein Absorption, Mountain Seeds, and Wake Up Call. Absorption can be useful if you're fighting a more mobile boss that moves around often, or doing things like Monster Park. Mountain Seeds come out with your Eruption, or when you use this skill on its own, so a little bit extra summon damage there. And Wake Up Call is an okay skill, but it's not here because you want to use it. See, these Trinodes are future-proofed for when 3rd and 4th Hexa Masteries come out and over here to GMS. Wake Up Call 6 and Absorption 6 both have passives that boost Eruption's final damage. See what I meant by Eruption is your lifeblood? Even Nexon themselves want you to use it as your main source of most of your damage. For Burst/BA, yeah, I guess you could just keep spamming Eruption, but you do have some other bursty skills. First, preparations. Make sure Dragon Vein Reading and Peerless Mountain are both up and active. Mana Overload too, if you had it and wanted some more damage. Also make sure to have your 2 manifestation buffs up and active. Winds for attack speed, and Suns for extra damage. You could also place some blank Dragon Veins around the boss to ensure you get the maximum of 5 veins used when you use a big stretch later. Here's where you'd probably want to buff up with your longer buffs like Booster if that's not already active, and Grandest Goddess's Blessing. Next, summons. Will skill / Saren skill if you have either of those. Winding Mountain Ridge, Mountain Seeds, either by pressing down on the skill or having them come out with Eruption, which is the next skill to pop anyways. All 3 Eruption summons, and then place down Arbor Away, pop a B-Link, and then finish off your burst with a big stretch and lands connection. I don't think the order of how you use those 2 matters, just so long as you use them. Once all that's played out, just keep spamming Essence Sprinkle and Surging Essence every time it comes off cooldown, while also remembering to maintain your Eruption summons. Shorten down, toggles, get your veins ready, buffs, Grandest Goddess's Blessing, Saren / Will skill, Winding Mountain Ridge, Eruption summon all your spirits, Arbor Away, a B-Link, Lands Connection and Big Stretch, spam Sprinkle and Surging Essence off cooldown, maintain Eruption summons. At 6th job, Lara's Origin gets slotted in after using Lands Connection and Big Stretch, again whatever order. For Off Burst, just spam Sprinkle and Surging Essence off cooldown while maintaining all 3 of your Eruptions. Alternatively, you could trade Eruption for Absorption if the boss is a bit more mobile, which comes at the cost of some overall damage. If you can though, try to opt for using Eruption over Absorption, it's just more damage. I like Lara. I don't really see many people play her nowadays, but she's a fun summon class to me. I went back to her for this guide expecting her to be a lot more complicated than she actually is, but yeah, now she's pretty straightforward and simple. I also had the willpower to push her to 6th job for this video, but I didn't need to really. She plays pretty much the same at 6th job, excluding the origin skill everybody else also gets there. Thanks to Lara Discord for having some useful information about Lara. And of course, thank you for watching this guide. If you have another class in mind you wanted me to go over next, leave some suggestions down in the comments. Hell, even if it's not a class guide, I'll do any Maple related videos, just so long as I know what to go over. If you like my videos for whatever reason, consider subscribing to the channel. At some point, I want to go back to some classes I already covered and update them with their new 6th job info, but I'll wait until their new masteries come out and I've played around with them enough to understand them better. But until then, I'll be working on my next video, whatever that may be. That's all.